Bismillah, alhamdulillah, as-salatu was-salamu ala Rasulullah. There are several definitions or classifications of human life stages depending on who you ask and in what context. The most comprehensive covers from fetus formation all the way to end of life and hereafter. It is interesting to note that everyone on earth believes and agrees on all stages with the exception of one, and for some possibly two. Today we want to discuss the Qur'anic perspective on these life stages and the one stage some people are not sure about or do not believe in. Some developmentalists have broken the human lifespan into 9 distinct stages: prenatal development, infancy and toddlerhood, early childhood, middle childhood, adolescence, early adulthood, middle adulthood, late adulthood, and death or dying. Each stage involves unique physical, cognitive, and social milestones that define human development from birth to end of life. National Institute of Health says there are only 5 stages: fetal stage, postnatal stage, where the postnatal growth and development process happens together, but at different rates, followed by childhood, 3 to 11 years old, then adolescence or teenage from 12 to 18 years old, followed by last stage, which is adulthood. Erik Erikson's stages of psychosocial development covers just about the same stages in human life cycle. This is how developmentalists view human life stages, which focuses on physical aspects. However, from the Islamic perspective, human physical life cycle is just part of the journey. In Islamic belief, human existence is viewed as a holistic journey originating in the physical and spiritual realms, passing through earthly life and continuing into an eternal hereafter or finality. While often summarized, the key stages of this journey include the realm of spirit or soul, the womb, earthly life, the intermediate grave phase, barzakh, resurrection or accountability, and the final abode, paradise or hell. The Quran talks about various human life stages in various contexts as well. Today we want to focus on one of many contexts in which the Quran details 9 stages in a set of verses. Generally speaking, the Quran describes the human life cycle primarily through physical development from its origin, which is extract of clay, classified as follows. Stage 1, sperm drop, gamete or nutfa stage, which is fertilization and implantation in a secure place, the womb. Number 2, clinging clot, alaqa stage, which is the embryo clinging to the uterine wall. The number 3 is lump of flesh or mudqa stage, which is the developing fetus. Number 4, bones, idam stage, which is the formation of the skeleton. Number 5, covering bones with flesh, lahm, which is formation of flesh and muscles. The journey continues then into number 6, new creation, nash'a stage, followed by birth as infancy, childhood stage, then go on to number 7, youth or maturity or adulthood, then to number 8, old age, and then to number 9, which is death. While these stages are focused more on physical aspect, there is an alternate path which the Quran talks about as well. It includes the realm of spirits, the womb, physical creation, then the worldly life, followed by death and temporary life, barzakh, which is the transitional stage between death and resurrection. Then the final stage, which is the resurrection itself, or judgment day, which is accountability, followed by final destinations, which are paradise and hell. The verses we selected from Surah Al-Mu'minun, chapter 23, verses 12 through 16, combine both the physical and the spiritual components as follows. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ مِنْ سُلَالَةٍ مِنْ طِينٍ. Number one, and certainly we created man from the extract of clay. This is the origination of mankind. Our physical body came from earthly dust, earthly material, and shall return to it at the time of death. ثُمَّ جَعَلْنَاهُ نُطْفَةً فِي قَرَارٍ مَكِينٍ. Number two, then we placed him as a sperm drop, gamete, in a firm lodging. That's verse 13. ثم خلقنا النطفة علقة فخلقناه علقة مضغة فخلقنا المضغة عظاما فكسوناها العظام لحما ثم أنشأناه خلقا آخر فتبارك الله أحسن الخالقين. Then number three, we made the sperm drop into a clinging clot. And number four, we made the clot into a lump of flesh. And number five, we made from the lump bones. And number six, we covered the bones with flesh. Then number seven, we originated, sourced him into another creation. So blessed is Allah, the best of creators. Then ثُمَّ إِنَّكُمْ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ لَمَيِّتُونَ. Then number eight, indeed after that you are to die. Then ثُمَّ إِنَّكُمْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ تُبْعَثُونَ. Then number nine, indeed you will be resurrected on the day of resurrection. Now, let's discuss each stage briefly. Number one, and certainly we created man from the extract of clay. This is the origination of mankind. Our physical body came from earthly dust, earthly material, or can even say the sperm and egg which form the human fetus in the womb are made up of earthly elements. Then the earthly body shall return to it through death. The Quran does not explain how man evolved from the essence of clay, because such explanation is not part of its objectives. The stages of this succession may be exactly as scientific theories suggest, or they may be different. However, the difference between the Qur'anic view of man and the way scientific theories look at him is that the Quran honors man, stating that a measure of God's Spirit was breathed into him to make him a being with the qualities and characteristics that distinguish him from animals. From this perspective, the Quranic view is fundamentally different from that of all the materialist theories. Number two, then we placed him as a sperm drop, gamete, into a firm lodging. After speaking about origination of mankind, then in second stage, this verse talks about continuation of human race through formation of fetus, through sperm drop, gamete, the creation formula that brings about new individuals of the human race and their methods of reproduction. Follows a line set by God. A drop of fluid is discharged from the man to settle in woman's uterus. It's not the whole drop, rather a single cell of hundreds of thousands form in this drop. It settles in the safe enclosure in the uterus which is supported by the hip bones, protecting it from the shocks and knocks that occur to the body as one moves about. The Qur'anic text makes the gamete a stage in the succession of man's creation, coming immediately after man's existence. This is true, but it also deserves contemplation. A human being in his full stature and with all his features, elements, and characteristics is enclosed within this gamete. It then develops into an embryo when it begins its new existence through a new series of stages. The gamete stage leads to that of a cell mass after the male sperm fertilizes the female egg, and then the cell mass clings to the wall of the uterus. The cell mass grows and becomes an embryo. This little creation continues through a process that never changes or deviates from its course. It moves along using its latent energy according to God's law, which combines perfect design with elaborate planning. Next verse describes succeeding stages. Then number 3, we made the sperm drop into a clinging clot, and number 4, we made the clot into a lump, and then we made from the lump bones, and number 6, we covered the bones with flesh. Then number 7, we originated, sourced him into another creation. So blessed is Allah, the best of creators. Number 7 is an extremely important stage, hence we will stop and start analyzing it somewhat in details, as the reason will be obvious shortly. This verse 14 details an embryonic development stage within the mother's womb, which we have discussed in detail in other lectures and won't get into it here. It suffices to say we are overwhelmed with amazement at this fact in the development of the embryo, which was stated in the Quran long before it was confirmed by a science called embryology. The fact that bones are made of cells that are totally different from those of flesh, it has been confirmed beyond any shadow of doubt that bones are formed first in the embryo. In fact, not a single cell of flesh would be seen before the whole skeleton of the embryo is finally in place. Interestingly, when you combine the second stage gamete in the last verse with the 5 stages on this verse, it adds up to 6 stages, which is also the same for creation of heavens and earth in 6 stages or periods. And if the creation of heavens and earth and creation of mankind as if they are intertwined. After the physical stages, the verse says he originated or sourced him into another creation. The term ansha'nahu has been translated as we developed him into another, or we caused it to become another. Thus, some commentators and translators have said this means we turned him into the full human being. However, if that was the case, the verse would have just said we developed him into a full human being. The term ansha'nahu comes from nash'a, which actually means creating something new, or innovating, or originating, or even sourcing it, meaning with this physical body after previous stage, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created something original without precedent, a new creation to go with it or combine with it, which has to be giving this created body life, the ruh, where each body would have its own exclusive soul. There is a similar passage with successive verses about creation of mankind in Surah As-Sajdah, chapter 32, by explicitly mentioning ruh, soul, after formation of nutfa and completion of certain stages in mother's womb onto stage 7, where it actually says it. الذي أحسن كل شيء خلقه وبدأ خلق الإنسان من طين. It is he who created everything in the best manner and originated the creation of the mankind from clay. ثم جعل نسله من سلالة من ماء مين. That's the next verse. He then made man's offspring come into existence from the extract of insignificant fluid. ثم سواه ونفخ فيه من روحه. Then he fashioned him and breathed into him of his spirit. Meaning, by breathing from his ruh, Allah completed, energized, characterized, and animated man. Hence, man becomes a human being once the ruh, spirit, is breathed into him. That is the new creation verse 14 is talking about. As it says, we then originated or sourced him into another creation. One might ask, but what about when Allah asked man, am I not your Lord, in the beginning of his creation? Was he not talking to man's soul? The answer is the verse that says, am I not your Lord, has a different meaning, which we have discussed extensively in a lecture called, Am I Not Your Lord? Please listen to that lecture for the rational explanation offered there. If you want to say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has knowledge of my existence from the very beginning of mankind or beginning of time, of course we say yes. Any creation's existence is within Allah's infinite knowledge. He knew when I would be born and what I would be doing today before the creation of Adam, peace be upon him. It is also written in the guarded tablet, Lawh al-Mahfuz. But that does not mean my ruh was created at the very beginning of man's creation. We originated, sourced him into another creation. In verse 14, to make him a creation with distinctive features. By the way, it is true that human embryo is similar to animal embryo, but only in its physical stages. For the human embryo is given a different sort of creation to make up this distinguished creature that we know with his potential to achieve excellence. The animal embryo, on the other hand, remains within the animal grade, possessing no distinctive features as that of humans. The human embryo is given special qualities that in time lead it along its human way. It is given another creation as it completes its embryonic stages, while the animal embryo stops at that stage because it does not have the same qualities. Hence, no animal can go beyond its animal status. The two are totally different, and the difference is caused by the breathing of divine spirit that brings the essence of clay into a human being, which is a different creation. This means that man and animals are similar in their somewhat in their biological makeup, but animals do not go beyond their status, while man is brought into being as a different creation, able to achieve a totally different level of perfection through the distinctive qualities God has willed to give him in order to complete his design of creation. Before we go to the next stage in human life, there is an extremely important distinction between this stage and any other stage within the 9 stages. What is it? It is in this stage that humans are born to this life along with their souls as a complete being and live in this world through their childhood and adulthood before they leave it in the next stage. The significance of it is that it is in this stage that humans get to exercise their free will to make decisions in their lives, followed by their actions, good and bad. Decisions and actions that determine his destination in the next life. In other words, we have no choice with the prior 6 stages before this stage, and have no choice when and where we will leave this world in the next stage, death. But we have lots of choices in between, which is during stage 7. And guess what? It is those choices and decisions and ultimately our actions that determine where we end up as our final destination through this journey into next life, next chapter. Hence, it is extremely important to focus on this stage number 7, which is life on earth, since we do not have choices to make. Furthermore, it is the total sum of our actions in this stage, good and bad, that we are taking with us to the next life, as we will be accountable for each and every one of them, hence the reckoning for reward and punishment. The last part of the verse 14 says, "So blessed is Allah, the best of creators." God is certainly the only one who creates in a true sense. Allah is not blessing himself, but rather blessing his power and creativity. However, Allah does not see creativity exclusive to him. For with the help of Allah, man can be creative as well. But Allah introduces himself here as the best of creators, meaning creation of man is nothing compared to what Allah can create. Meaning, mankind at best can montage, take the raw material originated and created by Allah Azza wa Jal, using the intellect and ingenuity Allah has given him, then creating or building various things. People look with amazement at what they term as scientific miracles when man invents a machine that works on its own without human interference. But how does this compare with the development of an embryo in all its phases and stages, each of which is hugely different from the preceding one, ushering in total transformations? But people tend to overlook such miraculous events, closing their eyes and minds to them, because long familiarity tends to disguise their miraculous nature. The mere thought that man, as complex as he is, summed up within a single cell that cannot be seen with the naked eye, yet carries all these qualities, distinctive features, and special characteristics, fills us with amazement. In fact, all these distinctive qualities, features, and characteristics grow and take full shape during the different stages of the development of the embryo, and then appear in full when the embryo is brought back as a different and new creation, as visible in a child. In fact, every child carries its own genetic features in addition to general human features and qualities. Both types are latent in the original cell but emerge later. When we reflect on this fact, which occurs all the time, our hearts and minds are bound to acknowledge this remarkable design by the Creator himself. The surah continues to depict the different stages of life to complete the journey. From Islamic point of view, human life that began on earth does not, however, end there, because an element from outside the earth forms an essential part of it, influencing the path it travels. The breathing of God's Spirit in it has given human life a different goal from that of the body and a destination unlike that of the destination of flesh and blood. Hence, it achieves its completeness somewhere other than this earth, in a totally different world, as the next verse 15 says. Then, in stage number 8, indeed, after that you are to die. Then, so death is that stage, number 8, when this chapter of man's life or journey ends, before the next chapter begins. And keep in mind, when we use the word death from Islamic perspective, death does not mean end of life, where one would disappear into nothingness, but rather means end of this chapter of human life. Thus, death is the end of human life on earth, forming a bridge between the life we know and the life to come. As such, it is only a stage in human life cycle, not its end. Then comes the next stage, as the next verse 16 indicates. Then indeed you will be resurrected on the day of resurrection. This is the last or final stage where your next life, next chapter of your life, which is the everlasting life, will begin with the two possible destinations in that day. Furthermore, this is where the absolute justice will be served by the ultimate judge, our creator and sustainer, to whom we return in that eventful day. Resurrection, which heralds the last and final stage, number 9, is when the perfect life begins, free of all the failings of earthly life, physical needs, fear, worry, stress, grief, and leading to no other stages, because it represents the level of perfection human beings can attain. This, however, applies only to those who follow the way leading to such perfection, outlined in the opening verses of this surah, Surat Al-Mu'minun. It is the way followed by believers who took God's path and guidance by choice. By contrast, those who in this life sink to the level of animals go further down in the life to come, so that they are right at the bottom. They are no longer human beings, because they become part of the fuel of hell, fed by stones and men. Now, on to some analysis of these verses, along with few thought-provoking questions. A quick examination of these 9 stages demonstrates an interesting point, which is every person on earth, Muslim and non-Muslim, believes and agrees with all stages 1 through 8 outlined by the Quran. However, there are those who do not believe in or accept the last stage, which is resurrection. In addition to that, materialists do not believe in soul, spirit, or human consciousness, stage 7 either. But as you know, they are extremely in extreme minority. However, aside from Christians and Muslims, the rest of the world do not really believe in the day of resurrection, stage 9. This is a sad state of affair for human race. It raises serious question of how could people ignore or reject the concept of resurrection. It seems illogical that beside a handful of atheists in this world, vast majority of people do acknowledge the existence of God or higher being or supreme being, yet do not believe in resurrection. The question to them becomes, if God exists, then how could He give us free will to choose, yet be indifferent to what we do, our good and bad actions. How could he not have reward and punishment? If there are no reward and punishment, things like responsibility and accountability are meaningless. Out of free will, one chooses to do good deeds and another chooses to commit atrocities against humanity, only for both to end up with the same destination called death. Does that even make sense? Most importantly, at the end of the day, what is the real bottom line incentive for me to be good, a good person with good deeds? When it comes down to it, really, what is to keep me from telling a lie or hiding the truth when my interest and benefit is at stake? At the end, when I do a good deed, what's in it for me? Or the opposite, what is to keep me from being a bad person and possibly live a better life and often get away with my crimes? What's to keep me from committing a crime when I can get around man-made laws and man-made law enforcement? What is to keep me from doing it? I may claim to be a good person, but when it comes down to it, what is to keep me from doing wrong when my own interest is at stake? Why would I give up my interest or benefit for the benefit of others? Self-sacrifice for what? It is no wonder that, with the exception of few natural disasters, the rest of many disasters today around the world are man-made, from wars and war crimes to injustices and oppressions throughout the world. Isn't this exact way of thinking and rejecting resurrection, hence no accountability, no responsibility, thus no reward and punishment, no fear of punishment, that has gotten us to where we are today? Let's imagine for a moment we wake up tomorrow morning and notice every person on earth agrees and believes in Resurrection Day, the day of reckoning, followed by the divine justice. Wouldn't this world be a much better place to live, perhaps close to paradise? We have discussed resurrection in depth in a lecture called Resurrection, as well as others. Please refer to those for more in-depth analysis. Then there is a bigger question, which is the purpose of life. If you believe in God, then what was the purpose of our creation to begin with? Did He create us out of earthly material only to return us to earth after a few years? That's a zero purpose. Have you ever seen a teacher who gives exams throughout the class, followed by the final exam, only to give grade 0 to every one of his students? 0 to a student who works hard and learns all the material, 0 to a student who does not study as hard, and 0 to a student who does not study at all. One might ask, what was the purpose? Another example, we can say that it's as if someone spends a lot of money building a big cruise ship with all amenities, many luxurious rooms, several restaurants, pools, gyms, entertainment, etc. And then invites lots and lots of people for the christening of the ship. When all the guests arrive, they are taken on a tour to show all the facilities and amenities, and then return to the main hall where the celebration or christening is going on. Then at the end, someone raises his hand and asks, "This is all great, but where are we going?" And the owner has no answer. all the money and effort spent, yet he has no idea where his ship is heading or its purpose. No wise person would do such a thing. These Qur'anic verses discussing 9 stages in human journey today from Surat Al-Mu'minun summarizes 3 chapters in man's life: his creation, his death, and his return to life. That is why other stages like the interim life or barzakh was omitted here. These verses imply that the same power who originated and created mankind will create the return or resurrection where he will fulfill his promise. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.